We now like to go ahead and quickly get into our next trilogue. And this one is talking about Web3, yet another buzzword, and it's titled as Web3 Building a Billion People Industry in India. To get into the conversation, let me invite in, starting with Mr. Vivek Belgavi, who's the partner PwC India, to moderate this session. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you very much. You could give him a round of applause if you would. And along with him in chat, let me welcome Mr. Parth Chaturvedi, Crypto Ecosystem Lead at coinswitch. Please welcome in. Mr. Sagar Sarbhai, who's the Global Head of Business Solutions and Advisory at Fireblock as well, to please join us in. And those who are sitting at the back, we'd really love you guys if you could come to the forward and, we'd be closer around. It's much better. You could hear better and everything would be better. All right, with this, I guess this is going to be a very, very interesting session. It's timed for 30 minutes, so you understand the gravity, and I'm going to give it to you, Vivek. The stage is all yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Parth, Sagar, looking forward to a great conversation. I hope I'm audible. Fantastic. So the topic that we are going to discuss today is around Web3 and what does it really mean for billions. We were just chatting before this conversation that what should be the starting point for this discussion. And pardon us if there are experts in this room, but we will try to make it accessible to everyone. I'll start with probably taking a stab at why it is important right now. It may not be it is currently a buzzword, but it's not something which is absolutely current. It has been there in some shape and form for last couple of years. It is an evolution of Web 2. If you get 5 Web3 enthusiasts in one room, I doubt they would agree on what Web3 really means. But just getting some common ground there, we're really talking about evolution from Web 2. We are really talking about a decentralized web. There's a debate of permission versus permissionless. We'll not get into that. But practically speaking, there are multiple ways that you and I can touch Web3. You can touch Web3 if you're talking about metaverse, and we are talking about distinct identity or authenticity on a metaverse. We will talk about Web3 if you're talking about token-based economy. If you're talking about NFTs, we will touch Web3. If you're setting up organizations like DAOs, where the rules are defining the ways of working an organization, again, we will touch Web3. If you're talking about decentralized finance, where by rules, certain financial products can be created, administered, bought, sold, again, we'll be talking about Web3. So there are many such instances which are defining what Web3 means. It is powered by underlying blockchain and crypto protocols. But we will explore more into that topic of what are the most practical use cases and how does it really become applicable for billions going forward. So to get started, Parth, why don't I get you with a quick intro, and I gave a kind of a sprawling description of Web3. How would you call it?
Sure. Thank you so much, Vivek. So first of all, I'm Parth Chaturvedi. I come from traditional finance. I used to work with JP Morgan. And towards the latter part of my career, I was in their blockchain team. The focus there was on blockchain as the technology rather than, crypto and digital assets. I moved on to like a full-time crypto role about a year back, doing markets and trading for FalconX. And recently I joined as, crypto ecosystem lead for coinswitch. For me, this entire journey has been like enlightening, and I've seen how the narrative has changed from blockchain. Then we got into smart contracts, and now we are entering into the space of Web3. To put things in perspective, last 24 hours, we have seen 3 different kind of personas show interest in the space. So the largest French bank, BNP Paribas, announced that they are doing crypto custody. They are getting into crypto custody. Countries, the second persona, Dubai, the Emirate of Dubai announced that their metaverse strategy, where they will be generating over 40,000 jobs in the metaverse space in the next 8 years. And on a consumer goods side, I saw Nike, they already acquired a NFT design studio called Artifact, and they are planning on launching the first digital and real world hoodie as an NFT together. So in terms of interest in Web3, we are seeing it across sectors, and not, it is not bound by just like, financial services. The other 2 ingredients that are required for this, space to really blow up is capital and talent. In terms of capital, 2021 saw over 30 billion in VC investments come into this space. This is like a 5% of total VC investments globally. This was directed at just one particular sector. And in terms of talent, we all know that the demand for Web3 developers, for blockchain developers is on the rise. Similarly, there was this 1 week, even during crypto winter, where three executives from JP Morgan moved to the crypto and blockchain space. So the stage is set, and I think that probably in the next 5 or 10 years, Web3 will become so mainstream that we won't even have to talk about it.
And just to confirm, like something like a cryptocurrency would be part of Web3, but we should not be limited to that. So it's
For
much,
sure.
much beyond that.
Web3 is much broader than financial services in general.
Perfect, perfect. Sagar, your intro and opening remarks.
Thank you. So quick introduction. My name is Sagar. I work for a company called Fireblocks. Quick couple of words on Fireblocks. We do not have presence in India yet in terms of employees and headcounts, but it is one of the largest digital asset infrastructure company on the planet. And really what we offer is we remove complexities from dealing in Web3. So we are essentially an infrastructure provider. Think of us as the AWS for Web3. So we provide different segments and sectors and industries with infrastructure using which you could issue, store, distribute, and do a lot of interesting use cases with digital assets, including Web3. We cater to a lot of segments, including varied segments, including large banks, fintechs, payment providers, e-commerce firms, corporates, luxury brands, gaming companies, you name it. So we really are that infrastructure layer. Our DNA is cybersecurity. So we were born in the aftermath of a couple of major hacks in the crypto ecosystem in 2017. Our founders come from that world of cybersecurity. They were invited by the South Korean government to come and investigate what was going on. And the founders realized that the infrastructure for digital assets, crypto back then, was not ready. There was no enterprise-grade infrastructure to do for the safekeeping and security of digital assets and Web3 broadly. Since then, we have now grown into an $8 billion company with a lot of big names like Sequoia, D1 Capital, Cotu on our cap table. Coming back to Web3, so from our perspective, the gateway to Web3 is always custody. Parth, you mentioned about a couple of banks launching their custody infrastructure. And the reason why any large enterprise organization, a bank, will start with custody is because if you want to start interacting with Web3, the foundation layer or the gateway is always wallet. And that is really our core business. So we have, we'll talk about it at length later, but just to give a couple of examples on what we are doing on Web3. So recently, just last week, we announced a big partnership. Well, we haven't announced it, but I think one of our partners, Flipkart, which is one of the largest e-commerce firms in India, they recently launched this new application called Fire Drops. And it's a very, very cool concept. And I, as an Indian, was very proud to learn about what they are trying to do with Web3 NFTs. So right now, it's just one phase, but they have a vision of doing a lot of interesting stuff going forward, and we will be their infrastructure provider. In Australia, we helped one of the largest banks in Australia, ANZ Bank, to issue their own Aussie dollar pegged stablecoin. And again, the issuance of a stablecoin is just one step. After that, you could do a lot of interesting stuff. So again, imagine that ANZ's customers will start using that stablecoin to do a lot of interesting stuff, everything from cross-border payments, wholesale FX, tapping onto DeFi, and so on. Similarly, Bank of New York Mellon, the largest custodian bank on the planet, is powered by Fireblocks. They also have very ambitious plans, not only around crypto, digital assets, but Web3 more broadly. In India, obviously, we have coinswitch as one of our partners. We have a lot of other players as well we are partnering with. But so as far as we are concerned, and as you rightly mentioned, crypto is just one small part of Web3. Web3 is much, much broader. And I understand that in India, crypto is still seen as something which is fortunately or unfortunately being used for nefarious activities. But I think beyond just crypto, when you talk about digital assets, be it a stable coin or tokenized assets, Web3 companies like Flipkart doing some very innovative stuff, I think I'm very, very bullish that over the next 3-4 years, we will become a billion-dollar industry in India as far as Web3 is concerned.
Thank you, Sagar. Based on the opening remarks from you and Parth, probably let's build on top of it. The topic is really on how does it become relevant for a billion users. And as we set the stage, it have to be relevant for use cases across sectors. So opening up for Parth, your thoughts on what could be the use cases across sectors which can be built for scale.
So at the very core, we have to understand what Web3 is. Web3 basically gives the right of ownership to the creator. So the perfect example, to sort of think about it is what we do with how we interact with Facebook or Twitter or any of these other platforms. These Web2 platforms are centralized where we provide them content and that content then gets monetized. So a majority of the share is ending up on the platform. What Web3 can do is you will be the owners of the content. How people interact with that content, how much do they pay for it, all of that can be built into a smart contract and live forever. Another great thing about like how Web3 or NFTs are structured, you can get paid in perpetuity. So let's say I create a song, put it on a Web3 decentralized platform somewhere. That whenever that song gets played, there is some royalty that comes to me. So that kind of freedom in itself is, I think, we don't really have the imaginative capacity right now to see how that can upend business models. Might very well in the same way when Facebook came around, the legacy players didn't know that how it could turn around revenues. That's the basic concept that I think needs to be highlighted. Other than that, how digital assets, because of the fact that they're built on blockchains or they're tokenized or they can be powered by smart contracts, that gives them a lot of programmability. Uh, Programmability could be in the sense of fractionalized ownership. It could be in the sense of, atomic swaps. So all these buzzwords as such, but they really will bring a lot of efficiency into how, things are structured right now. So example again, you buy a stock today, it gets into your demat account T+2. They will be very efficient and bring it down to T+1. But still, they will never be able to match the atomic swap that can happen for a tokenized asset on blockchain.
Great examples, I think sets the tone. Sagar?
Yeah, no, great examples. And I'll begin from where you left apart. So we are actually working with a couple of large banks globally, not in India yet. What they want to do is tokenize real-world asset classes like equities and bonds. And the push they are getting is from their customers. Now, today, if I'm sitting in India, for me to buy a Tesla stock is actually very difficult. But imagine if, let's say, there was a company like coinswitch in the future, they were to tokenize a Tesla stock, and I get the same experience as buying and transferring a crypto. So basically, I can buy a Tesla stock, which is completely fractionalized and tokenized. I put it in my wallet, and then I can trade on it 24/7. I can transfer it to my family or friends. I can gift it as a wedding gift to my brother on a Saturday evening. So from that experience, I think that is a killer use case. And not just equities, you're looking at bonds. So in China, it's already live. So what some of the Chinese banks have done is they have tokenized bonds, fractionalize it. So earlier for me to get into a bond trade, the minimum capital would be like $100. Today, I can buy a 100 rupee fractionalized bond. And again, trade it 24/7, transfer it, distribute it the way I need it. So I think that's on the financial services side. The other interesting use case is around payments. And I think this is highly relevant for a country like India, a huge inbound remittance corridor. We have a lot of fellow citizens working in the Middle East or Europe or the US sending money into India. And yes, there has been a lot of payments innovation around payments in the last 10 years. But that innovation has been focused on the front-end user experience. But they are still using the existing rails or infrastructure. Now with Web3, you can use a digital asset. It could be a stable coin, it could be pure crypto, or in the future it could be a central bank issued digital currency. And then you could do a wallet-to-wallet transfer and make fiat payments, remittances very, very easy, seamless, real-time, and cheap. Similarly, I think what the other trend that we are seeing globally is that a lot of large banks are issuing their own stable coins, which is basically putting fiat on the blockchain. These are tokenized assets backed by fiat currencies. Now, we believe that in 2 to 3 years from now, there'll be at least 10 to 20 large global banks with their own stable coins, and then they can start doing wholesale FX using permission DeFi. So using automated market makers, and again, without getting into too many technicalities, but that will completely transform how wholesale FX is done today. More on the retail B2C side, I think I give the example of Flipkart. There are a lot of other e-commerce companies, luxury brands, automakers who are coming up with this concept. Right now, the first use case is more around brand and marketing, trying to build a brand. So for example, if I am, let's say, I don't know, a brand, a luxury brand, I want to run a campaign for the Cricket World Cup, I will issue a cricket-based NFT. Flipkart will, or someone like a Flipkart will airdrop those NFTs into retail customers' wallets. And then I, as a retail customer, can start trading on those NFTs, start distributing them, and that becomes an asset class in itself. That will be more of a B2C play. Long story short, there are infinite number of opportunities and use cases. One more thing that came to mind is this whole path you touched upon DAOs. There was this one startup that I came across in India. I think they are doing some really amazing work. They are completely redefining how we work today. It's called DAO Lens. What they are trying to do is so for example, I'll give you an example. If I'm a freelance worker, sitting in India, and I want to offer my services to a large company in the US or Europe. Today, it's all centralized and manual. There is no guarantee that after I've put in the effort, I will get my money and my supplier would be satisfied, right? But with a DAO, everything could be decentralized. They could leverage a smart contract to make sure that I get my payment once I have delivered on the promises. And all of that is managed and governed through a smart contract in form of a DAO. And I think, so I would highly recommend that you guys look into that. I think that is an amazing, amazing concept, and I'm very proud that it is coming from India. So yeah, I mean, there are many, many number of use cases. Of course, at Fireblocks, you would like to imagine that for any Web3 use case, the foundation layer is always custody, and the gateway to Web3 will always be a wallet.
Thanks, Sagar. I'll just add one more, and probably both of you slightly touched upon it, more from a B2C perspective, is how can it help in customer engagement and authenticity. Probably it's kind of linked to metaverse, but when we think about metaverse, we think about completely augmented reality worlds. I could argue that we are already living in a quasi-metaverse. The way we are talking on WhatsApp, the way we are engaging on Zoom, our personas are different, so we are already in that kind of a world. And in that social world, going forward, it would be more critical to establish authenticity, to say that what you have, whether it is your skills, whether it is your assets, is truly what it is. And that's where tokenization will start playing a big role. We are working with, having conversations with a fair bit of brand companies to say, today you buy a watch, there is a certificate of ownership. Can that be given as an NFT? And on top of it, warranty and services and other programs can be automatically scheduled. At the next level, brand engagement and access can be created. And at the third level, your ecosystem can be created. So you start playing a game and you want your favorite watch to be on your wrist, can be on your wrist. You ought to be on Instagram and show that you've got a watch. Both Insta and Twitter are building their APIs within OpenSea, and whatever you own will start coming in. So to build authenticity in digital world, which today is not really there, is the other big space which would be kind of merging of the social media, metaverse, and tokenization coming together, is the other space I thought I'll just drop in there for us to consider.
Actually, if I can, sorry.
Yeah, please.
I was just going to say that makes so much sense. I also had that example when somebody has to describe what are the benefits of the metaverse. Think about how during the pandemic, we lived our lives on like Zoom calls in these like 2D environments. What if there was a metaverse and we could have all just like, met there and got tasks done? We could have this conversation in the metaverse, like if some of us were not there present physically. So the possibilities are like limitless.
I was just to add to your point, I think there's actually a low-hanging fruit right now. This is live in production use case. There is obviously a lot of push on the climate change ESG side of things. The way carbon credits are traded today is very obsolete. But I think NFTs could be a killer use case for something like a carbon credit trading. And we are working with a couple of banks and private equity firms in the US who are trying to completely reshape how you do ESG and carbon trading through NFTs and fungible tokens. So that's the other, just to add to your point.
Great points. So to build on this, and probably since we're in a FinTech conference and a lot of it is beyond finance, and we did touch upon finance a little bit when we were talking about asset exchanges, but are there other use cases for FinTechs and finance which comes to your mind? Something more on the credit side or on investments?
So again, I've seen a couple of use cases already being built in this space, how you can tie real world assets to decentralized finance. And one of the most prominent use cases came out recently from, I would call them the OG DeFi players, Maker, where basically there are bonds issued by like a regular bank, which are being used as collateral in a tokenized format. And this really opens up a lot of liquidity for how those how that collateral can be treated. And most importantly, smart contracts remove the bias, the human bias that anyways you will see in lending or in any kind of financial services. There's always a human bias as to you should lend more to this person or you should give them more leeway. All of that is negated when you are interacting with smart contracts, because they will auto execute. They need their inputs coming in, and if the price hits a certain level or you have not made your repayments, they will liquidate your collateral. Even in the current scenario that we saw, where a lot of noise was created around how Three Arrows Capital got liquidated, Celsius was filed bankruptcy. All of these are centralized platforms. We have to understand this. DeFi continued working efficiently. There were no, Aave or Maker or Compound. They didn't come up and say, okay, we need like a bailout of some sorts. They, whenever the price hit, they liquidated, and they weren't really affected. I think DeFi will really come out very strong from this current downturn episode.
No, I absolutely agree, and this is a topic close to heart. Uh, Fireblocks has always been a champion of decentralized finance. And again, we have done some really cool projects globally. Absolutely agree with you, Parth. All the news that has come out over the last 3 months has been focused around centralized organizations. DeFi till date has not been impacted. So actually, we were working with a bunch of clients, again, large banks and fintech players, who wanted to do some borrowing and lending to DeFi. But what we realized was that regulators were not comfortable, because I can do borrowing and lending through a pool, but I would never know who is participating in that pool. So that is when we partnered with Aave, the blockchain company, and we launched, well, they launched a new product in partnership with us. It's called Aave Arc. And this basically introduces a new concept of permission DeFi. So just to give you an analogy, let's imagine a public parking lot. Any one of us can go, it's not gated, and we can park our cars there, right, for free. That is public DeFi. Permission DeFi is, it's a gated parking lot, there's a security guard, you have to pay an entrance fee, and only if the security guard allows you to get in, you get in. That is permission DeFi. So if you're a large bank, you want to do borrowing and lending, you know that that pool has only players who have been fully KYB'd, KYC'd by Fireblocks, who's the gatekeeper of that permission pool. So that was one use case, which was around borrowing and lending. We have seen massive traction around that. We are working with a couple of other DeFi protocols trying to create separate permission pools for exchange use case. So as I said, the world of wholesale FX can be completely transformed. So imagine you are two large market makers in two different currencies. Instead of using a CeFi FX desk, you could use a permission DeFi pool of, let's say, a Uniswap or a Curve to do wholesale FX using that as an automated market maker. And I think, and by the way, these are not science experiments. This is actually happening live in production today. Aave Arc, we have seen a massive, massive traction. And this is a way to your point. This is not CeFi. This is very different from how the world and this again is real world use case of a Web3 bank using, or a fintech using Web3.
Thanks, Sagar. So again, going back to the core topic where we started from, for it to have, let's say, a ecosystem of billion users, will it happen organically? Having seen players across different countries, are there specific ecosystem enablers which can fast track this process?
I have a very personal opinion on this, and I think education is so important in this space, because again there are so many misconceptions about crypto, about blockchain, and it being it's so it's so ahead of the curve in terms of like even a lot of developers don't understand what is happening. So I think education in the next, again, the bear market is good in terms of building, in terms of educating. I think the focus should be on that. At coinswitch we are also trying to do our best in terms of, we are organizing a hackathon coming in a couple of weeks in Bangalore. We are also doing a lot of educative videos on YouTube, on other like social media platforms. We've also launched, in fact, the first INR onshore denominated crypto index. It's called Create. So Create basically tracks the INR prices of the top 8 cryptocurrencies. So if somebody asks you how's the crypto market doing, you can actually look at the Create value. Like you look for a Sensex in equity or a Nifty in stocks. You can do the same with Create for an INR market. And again, like educating even policymakers and regulators, trying to engage with them and clear out the doubts and misconceptions. I think that is going to be like one of the key enablers for the space.
Super. Sagar?
Yeah, so I look at it from 3 angles, right? So for India to be a billion people market for Web3, there are 3 key elements required. Talent, favorable regulation slash governance, and number 3, market. The good news with India is you already have a market, we already have the talent. India has the largest talent pool by far globally, right? Even, I mean, right now, people are, if you go to companies like Polygon is an Indian company. It was born in India, and Polygon by far is one of the market leaders in this space, right? If you go to any blockchain company, including Fireblocks, you will see a lot of Indian talent working there. So that problem I don't think we have to worry about. We have the best institutions on the planet, the IITs, the IIMs, ISBs. So I think from that perspective, that is taken care of. And from what I understand, there are Web3 courses, digital asset courses, which are being enabled and launched. The second place, the most important part is around regulations and a favorable climate for innovation to thrive. And yes, I think Parth, I mean, I agree with you. There is a lot of misconception in India around crypto. Crypto is Web3, Web3 is crypto, but actually Web3 is a much, much, much broader topic, right? And I would urge, if there are people from NITI and NASSCOM and RBI, SEBI sitting here, I would urge you to please look into Web3 with an open mind. Let's do some engagement. I mean, NASSCOM and NITI Aayog have done a phenomenal job as far as FinTech is concerned. India is now one of the hubs globally as far as FinTech is concerned. I believe we could replicate the FinTech story, the payment story, the UPI story for Web3. And I think folks like NASSCOM, NITI Aayog will have a huge role to play. Fireblocks we would love to partner with as an education partner or an engagement partner in India. Go to RBI, talk about stable coins, talk about CBDCs, and then also partner with folks like Flipkart on how Web3 could completely transform how a lot of traditional financial services happens today.
On the policy front, just talking about a couple of risks and taking your views, we're almost on the hour. One, in India, at some level, can say that the infrastructure is challenged, even for Web 2, as we get into beyond major cities. And secondly, there's an oxymoronic construct here. A regulator is centralized, whereas Web 3 is decentralized. So how do these two reconcile? Some finishing thoughts from both of you.
So I think the point that Sagar made like before that, like how institutions are getting into DeFi in like permission pools. Similarly, one node could be operated by the regulator. Sure. Just to get like basically a node in blockchain gives you all the information you ever need. Yeah. You can get all transactions, all wallets that are in that blockchain. You can get all that information. So permissioned versions of like different blockchains could be a solution. Sagar, if you want to add something.
Yeah, so I think we are not living in a utopian world, right? We are not saying that crypto will replace the INR or Web3 will replace the RBI. That will never happen, right? But as Parth mentioned, there are roles that regulators can play themselves. Again, there have been a lot of chatter around RBI launching their own digital currency. I personally haven't heard a lot coming out from there, but again, that is something worth looking into. If RBI tomorrow launches a digital currency, a INR-backed CBDC, that could potentially become an interesting gateway into Web3. And I think there are some low-hanging fruits around experimentation, right? So I know that Prime Minister Modi has been very bullish on the whole idea of Gift City. I mean, it was his brainchild when he was the Chief Minister of Gujarat. I think Gift City could become that sandbox or that experimentation lab for all these Web3 use cases. I would even go out and say that Gift City could become the Web3 capital of APAC, where you invite a lot of blockchain companies, Web3 companies to come and experiment in Gift City, and who knows what comes out of it.
Amen to that.
So I think we're almost on the hour. At a headline level, Web3 is much beyond crypto. At a headline level, a lot of new use cases which can be enabled. We spoke about fractionalization, we spoke about DeFi, we spoke about tokenized economy, we talk about metaverse and linkages to metaverse. From a compliance perspective, it probably would require a new way of thinking, but can be complied if we need law and order to come in when we need help. We can't work in a completely out of that law and order situation as well. So it can be done in balance, and there is a fair bit of potential for us to hit the billion users, probably become the creator economy, if you may. With that note, thank you so much. Thanks, Sagar. Thanks, Parth.
Thank you.
Fantastic conversation.
Thank you so
I
much.
hope all of you enjoyed it as well.
Thank you.